insane early with not one, not two, but 3 trades inside the top 12 picks, all to take quarterbacks. Now imagine a year ago on draft night, if I said Deshaun Watson would be the 3rd quarterback taken, you would have won a whole lot of money, and or you would have run through a whole lot of guesses before you could possibly have come up with Mitchell Trubisky and Pat Mahomes as the players selected 2nd and 10th. Offense dominated early as well. Several Alabama and Ohio State defenders slid just a little bit. Conley went, what did he go, 24? And then you had at 31 Reuben Foster as he slides a little bit. We're going to get right back to Philadelphia and give the first word this hour to Todd McShay. And Todd, I want to start with you. Your reaction as the chaos ensues early and there's all this wheeling and dealing to get to quarterbacks. What were you thinking?
All the craziness we've seen in all the years of the draft, I can't remember a top 10 that was wilder. I mean, the movement for the quarterbacks, you've got the first-year general manager, John Lynch, and Sam Fran just robbing Chicago. Chicago wanted to do it, and they got their guy, but just what he was able to do. And then some of the great players that started to fall, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I mean, mock drafts got ripped up, which is always great, and it was a lot of fun.
John Gruden, Louis Riddick, I want to welcome you in. And John, I want to begin with you. The quarterback position, as we know, is all about supply and demand. Do you feel that the demand here was justified by the supply?
Only time will tell. But these were uncommon picks, if you ask me. I did not expect Andy Reid to go this high. I certainly didn't expect the Houston Texans to move up this high to take Deshaun Watson. I was surprised, very surprised, with the Trubisky pick. And I'm equally surprised that Cleveland, San Francisco, didn't get a quarterback. But there's a lot to prove. But clearly that was the story of this year's draft. These 3 quarterbacks going as early as they did.
Louis, you and I had a conversation yesterday about the topic of red flags and how that might impact what would happen in terms of who was picked and when and where. What was your assessment of how those impacted where players went? Maybe a Conley, surprisingly, maybe to some did go in the first. Peppers, just your reaction to that.
Yeah, you know, I thought maybe some of these players would have slid a little bit more. I thought Gary and Conley would have slid a little bit more, although his character coming out of school was pristine. I mean, it really was. It was sterling. So you really have to trust the fact that Reggie McKenzie, Joey Clinkscales, the guys who are really making the decisions out there from a scouting perspective, really did their work. And then with Reuben Foster, you know, what's interesting about him is, look, I think the San Francisco 49ers got the next Navarro Bowman. I think they got the next Patrick Willis. I think the kid is that good. So I thought Reuben would slide. I had him going 27 to Kansas City in the one mock that I did. So getting down there and John Lynch picking him up where he did, look, John Lynch had a real good day. So for some of these character guys that people were concerned about where they were going to fall, I'm happy that they got picked where they got picked. I really am, because a lot of these guys, some of the things that are surrounding them, I hope in the end that I'm proven right, just like the teams are proven right, that these are situations that aren't as bad as maybe they look. And so, you know, it was a wild day, Scott. I mean, it really was a wild day. It was a wild day from the fans to, you know, to all the trades. What a great first round.
It was that. It was entertaining as hell. And John, you get all these young quarterbacks in there and sit down with them. When Patrick Mahomes comes in there, and the knock on anybody that comes out of Texas Tech is system. When you sit down with him, when you talk to him, I mean, it's a surprise to me anyway to see him go 10. But what are the Chiefs getting in this guy?
Well, this is not the same system that Graham Harrell came from and Cliff Kingsbury came from. They modified this scheme to fit this kid's skill set. He did a lot at the line of scrimmage. Scott, he had to score every time he had the ball. That's why some of these decisions that he makes are crazy.
Right.
They had to score every possession because their defense was horrific. But this man can do the one thing you cannot coach. He can unload the ball from unbelievable positions with all kind of velocity and accuracy. And I said it during the broadcast. Andy Reid was in Green Bay in 1992 when we made the trade for Brett Favre. And Andy Reid has a lot to do with the development of Brett Favre. I'm sure he sees a lot of similar qualities in Mahomes. He's got the perfect man to watch in Alex Smith, who's a real pro. I think this is a long-term pick that will really benefit Kansas City.
All right, fellas, bear with me here as I ping-pong around a little bit because I realize that you two aren't in the same place as Todd McShay. And Todd, if I could just bring you back in, and you and I had a chance to talk this week where I asked the question, and it wasn't even a question, I just said Trubisky. Chicago clearly coveted him, and as he goes second, what do you think the Bears are going to get long-term? They spent all this money on Glennon. What do you sense the plan is?
Well, forget about what they gave away, which was entirely too much, talking about a third, a fourth, and then a third next year to move up one spot. And I really think that they could have gotten him just sitting at number 3. Trubisky, and I told you this, the more tape I watched of him, the more I liked. And I wish I had another 13 games to evaluate Trubisky, but I think his poise in the pocket, his sense of where the rush is coming from, his ability to keep his eyes down the field, and his ability to hang in there and make tough throws with the rush coming on him and anticipate throws and throw to spots. He has all the tools to be developed, and I love that he's going to Chicago where they have a veteran quarterback in Glenn, and as you mentioned, not going to Cleveland where he might get forced into the lineup too early, and the hometown kid, he's got to come and save this Browns organization. They're not there yet. I think with Chicago, they're a lot closer to a team that a year from now, after a year of learning and growing and watching Glennon and how he handles himself, I think Trubisky's got a chance to step in and have some success, and I think he's got a chance to be a good starter in this league if managed properly.
So I asked Coach about Mahomes, I asked Todd about Trubisky, and Lewis, I want to ask you about the third pick, the third quarterback who was chosen, and that's Deshaun Watson. And Lewis, I heard John say on the air that this is maybe the best clutch quarterback he's ever seen in college football. He's a winner. We know that. What are the Texans getting in this young man?
Well, they're getting a guy who's been through the fire, a guy who has tremendous resiliency, a guy who has a never-say-die attitude, and a guy who is a born leader, which are all things that you need at the quarterback position without a doubt. The questions he's going to have to answer are, is he going to be able to digest what is, by all accounts, a very complicated playbook and an offense that puts a tremendous amount of mental strain on the quarterback in terms of all the things he has to do pre-snap, how he has to be on the same page with the wide receivers, all the different route adjustments that wide receivers have in Bill O'Brien's offense. That's a lot for him to digest given the offense that he came from. So it's going to be incumbent upon him to go ahead and get in that playbook immediately, just as it's going to be incumbent upon Bill O'Brien to say, hey, look, I can't just force all this stuff on this kid. The faster I want him to play, the more I'm going to have to adjust to help him out. So it's a fascinating pick, but they've got a great character kid who's going to do everything he can, Scott, to make himself successful.
I realize, fellas, you've been at this for a while, and before our brains turn to mush, I'd just like to get a thought from each one of you about a pick. And Todd, I'll start with you. A pick that when it was made, you absolutely love it. You think this is a perfect guy, a perfect fit, a steal, however you want to frame it. The pick you loved was what?
19 Tampa Bay Bucks. I mean, the positive is if you're sitting at 13 or beyond, you're loving it. 6 quarterbacks and receivers went off the board in the top 12 picks. Just push back players to you. And so Tampa sits there, and sometimes the best thing to do is just be patient. They sit there and they wait, and they're hoping to get some players. They never think that O.J. Howard is going to be on the board, player I had ranked at number 7 overall in this class. Now you've got a guy who's, I think he's got a chance to be special. He's 251 pounds. He ran a 4.51 40. He's long, and he will block unlike most other tight ends in this class. So to me, with Jameis Winston, another weapon, and a guy who can help a little bit in the run game, this is a big-time pick at number 19. Never thought he would get there.
Hey, you throw him out there with Evans, and now you got Deshaun Jackson to stretch the field and take the top off, man. They got some weapons for the young quarterback. John Gruden, I'll ask you the same question I just asked Todd. A pick that when it was made, you loved it.
Well, for me, it's not even close. Number 1 player I had in this draft was Jamal Adams out of LSU. I love the fact that he's going to the Big Apple. Scott, he reminds me of some of my favorite safeties, the Ronnie Lotts, Rodney Harrisons. He is a wrecking machine. He's versatile. He can play in the post. He's a great one-on-one tackler. He's an inspiring leader and a real quality person. This is a huge pick for the Jets.
Lewis, this puts
I'm going to have to go 17.
Yeah, this puts you in a bind, Lewis. You don't get Adams. I know that's your guy. You don't get him now because Coach just took him.
That's okay, because you know what? I'm already jumping the gun. I'm already cutting you off, Scotty, because I'm trying to get to my guy. 17, Jonathan Allen to the Washington Redskins. I know that the Redskins were sitting there in their war room going, are you kidding me? This guy slid all the way down to here. And defensive tackle, which is really thin in this draft, this guy fell to us at a position where we have been decimated. We've given up more rushing yards than we care to really repeat out loud over the past couple of years. This guy solidifies us up the middle, a guy who can play the run, rush the passer, perfect character. He's from the area. I mean, I'm sure they were sitting there going, wow, he's going to fall right in our lap. I know I sound pretty happy. I know I don't sound half as happy as probably they are.
The concerns were about the shoulder. I mean, when you hear about this, I mean, how do you view that? I mean, you weigh risk versus the reward. How many years you think you can get out of the guy playing this position, Lewis? How is it viewed?
Well, I think the thinking has changed a little bit, Scott. More times than not, when you're worried about the long-term ramifications of having shoulder issues like that, you're talking about, well, is the guy going to have an 8, 9, 10-year career? Well, quite honestly, right now, the shelf life of coaches and general managers is about 3 or 4 years. That's really one contract for a guy like Jonathan Allen. That's his rookie contract, 5 years. So if you can get him to that, and then anything after that, you're hoping you still have a job, and you're hoping that, you know what, he's still healthy enough that you can re-sign him to a bigger long-term deal. So I kind of think that the time frame that GMs look at players as far as their availability and their longevity has been condensed. It's now right around that 4 or 5 year period. And with Jonathan Allen, everybody that I talked to said, we think he'll make it past that.
John, if the Redskins were psyched to see Allen slide to them, the Niners move up to get Reuben Foster. And I know, talking to Lewis, how much he was in love with the way that guy played with such an urgency and violence. What do the Niners get at 31 and Foster? Seems like if he's healthy, it's a hell of a steal.
Well, Lewis and I agreed. We've been talking about Foster for the last month. He is the ringleader at Alabama. He's an every down linebacker. He's good in zone coverage. He can play man coverage. He's had some injuries, and the off the field now is a real problem. But when you put the shoulder pads on and go play football, this is the man I want to be my middle linebacker. He has an exceptional passion to find the man with the ball and rock him. He is a vicious hitter. He's going to be a fun guy to watch. I really like comparing him to Navarro Bowman. Those two guys in the middle of the defense with Solomon Thomas. That's a heck of a start by John Lynch, one of my old teammates. Congratulations, John, on your first draft. That's awesome.
Todd, I gave you the first word here, and I'm going to give you the last word in this opening segment of this 90-minute SportsCenter. Why do you think?
Appreciate that, man.
Of course, you're my guy. It's late, and I appreciate you. Reuben Foster slides to 31 because why? Was it bad medical? Was it the combine? I mean, was it a combination? How would you characterize what you know?
It's a combination of the baggage, character concerns, and then also the medical tests for some teams weren't exactly ideal when it came back in the medical recheck. So I think some teams said, you know what, you combine those two factors, we're going to pass. There's too many other good players on the board. But I think this is a perfect place for him to go. Part of the issue and concern with him is what is he going to do when he's got more money, more fame, more free time with the crowd that he hangs out with and guys that, frankly, NFL scouts are worried that they're not good influences and could take advantage of him. So now you take him from Alabama and you send him out to the West Coast and with an organization that has a really good structure in place. And I just think what John Lynch did today was unbelievable. I mean, they get the same player at 2 that they were going to get at 3. They wind up getting an extra 3rd and 4th round pick today and then a 3rd round pick next year. Then they move back in with that 4th round pick that they got, and they wind up getting one of the top 10 players in this draft. So 2 of the top 10 players, and net, they got it for giving away absolutely nothing and getting an additional 3rd this year and 3rd next year. Brilliant work in his first draft. Really tip your lid to John Lynch.
Your final mocks today had to undergo a little bit of tweaking there because there was well, you went Trubisky for a moment, but then you come back to Garrett. How much uncertainty was there in the room?
It's a mess.
What happened there?
A lot of information coming out. You know, I've been doing this almost 20 years. You'd think the idiot in me I'll never learn.
I'm not knocking your mock. I don't care about your mock. I just want to know.
Everyone's mock was a disaster.
Exactly. So how do you ultimately think Cleveland landed on Garrett?
I think that they had different factions within the organization, and I think they came to the agreement, let's just stay here and take the best football player in the draft, and that's Myles Garrett. I think they did the right thing at number 1. Now, I don't understand, and who knows what they were trying to do. I don't know at this point whether they were trying to move up, and maybe that's the reason Chicago made that urgent deal from 3 to 2 to go and get Trubisky. But to me, you know, they weren't able to go up and get a quarterback. They're always now, when you look at the Cleveland Browns, we're always going to say, could have had Carson Wentz last year. passed on an opportunity to get Deshaun Watson and trade it back. He's always going to be linked to those two quarterbacks' careers, in addition to all the other blunders that the previous regimes have made at that quarterback position. So another draft in the first round goes by, and no more answers for the Cleveland Browns at the quarterback spot.
McShay, I lied to you. You don't get the last word. Before we say goodnight to Coach Gruden, I want to give those guys one shot at Cleveland. In total, what did you think of the Browns' first round?
Got three good players. I don't think Myles Garrett is a great player yet. I think he's the best talent in this draft. He's with the right defensive coordinator in Greg Williams, so I like that pick. I think Joku, the tight end they took, is a very intriguing athlete. He'll be able to create some yardage after the catch. Hugh Jackson, very creative. I like the upside of him. He's only 20 years old. And I love Jabril Peppers out of Michigan. I think he is a joker deluxe. He can help you in all three phases of the game. And the Browns need a safety as well. They added a lot of team speed, three really good young players.
Yeah, I think Greg Williams knows a little bit of something about tapping into a player's competitive character and getting it out of him. So Myles Garrett ought to be ready. He better be ready to strap it up because Greg will not accept any kind of loafing there. And Greg knows a little bit about developing safety. So Jabril Peppers, a guy who right now there's been a lot of talk about, is he a safety, is he a linebacker, is he a star, is he a money, meaning a nickel linebacker? Look, Greg will find a way to use him. He has more packages than you can imagine as far as how he deploys personnel on the football field. So Jabril will be just fine. He went to the right coach. He went to the right scheme. And quite honestly, I think Cleveland has the potential to have maybe started to turn their fortunes, but they still have to answer the quarterback position.
Well, if nothing else, they've acquired some picks that perhaps maybe the big plan is with a couple of SoCal quarterbacks next year. That's what they're looking at. Coach, appreciate you being with us. Lewis, Todd, we'll talk more to you about